question to the directors. How much did you know about the others, what your colleagues were doing while you were filming your little part of the story? Did you talk to each other, or was it forbidden?
Forbidden.
Forbidden, yeah. I didn't know it was forbidden, but from my behalf, well, I didn't break the rule then, Robert. I don't think any of us were really aware of what anybody else was actually doing in their own production. They all occurred over a period of how long, Rob? Nearly a year, was it, that different films were occurring? But so it was a surprise for all of us when the film was actually put together to actually see what everybody else had been doing over that period of time.
It made the premiere very interesting. Yeah, seeing 17 other films and how they all linked together, even though we had absolutely no contact with each other. But there was still an overall kind of theme, or there was a Tim Winton-ness about the entire project. And so it was really fascinating to see what all these other voices from Australian cinema were up to, responding to the same text.
I think, Shaun, you mentioned it's like an art form where you fold the canvas and each artist painted a section of the canvas and then hid that part from the next artist and the next artist, and then you opened up the canvas at the end to reveal this work made by many artists unaware of what each other was doing. And in some ways, I was concerned that I didn't want to homogenise the project. You know, curating all of these films, I didn't want to force them in a direction that made them the same. You know, we were excited by the opportunity that the audience would see it and that there'd be this kind of visceral pleasure moving from one story to the next as they were in different form, told in different ways, with different styles. And so everyone used different cameras, different cinematographers, different composers. You know, it really was a grand collaboration of people. There was an amazing coincidence where two of the films with two different composers who never spoke to each other. And when I put them all together, they composed pieces of music in the same key and with the same kind of emotional kind of flavour. And I think it's, as you mentioned, I think Tim Winton's work is so revered. I mean, I've read all of Tim's books since the early work, and I think for a lot of Australians that's true, that, you know, you look forward to his books. But I think that there's something about not just The Turning, but all of his work that kind of infused the material, you know, as our great novelist. I mean, he is like a Raymond Carver or a John Steinbeck. I mean, he is someone who speaks of Australia in a way that no other author really has.
I think that sense of Tim is, you're talking about the overall genius behind the whole project. I mean, apart from Robert, who kind of coordinated it all, but Tim himself and his writing is the thing that links all of us, I think, and the thing that we've all responded to. So, it speaks very highly of him that there is a homogeneity and there is of tone, and even though the pieces are very different, there's a sense that it is very much one film, and I think that's largely because of Tim and Robert. But the source material is so strong and so resonant for all of us. I think that's why we kind of respond in similar ways to it. When I first saw the film, I assumed that the composer was there was one composer on it. Mm-hmm. I didn't realise there was completely separate composers on each piece. So it's amazing.
I think Robert must be some kind of puppet master, because everyone I spoke to said they got the story that they wanted to do. And I certainly, when I did Small Mercies, which is a very weighty story within the book. It's the longest, and in fact was also published separately as a novella. And because we're in such esteemed company, I thought there was no way I'd get a Guernsey, but I got to direct it, and it was a really, I think for me it was a strong connection. It was about a man dealing with the death of his wife, and I'd just come off directing a film that was very much about how people cope with grief in unusual and messy ways, and particularly how kind of the desire to rebuild again plays into that. And it's an extraordinary story, and it could very easily be, I think, like all of the stories in the book, they could very easily be their own feature film. But when they're kind of locked into this little web and a dialogue and a conversation with each other, they become something kind of much more resonant. So, yeah, it was extraordinary to be able to do that.